tonight from 3/4 of the quadrant that was acquired by Inter Miami from Barcelona, basically, historically, in Sergio Busquets, Luis Suarez, and Jordi Alba. And it goes to show you that they have not rested on their laurels, because they've also added some depth to this team, and there were some people missing for Inter Miami tonight. So if you come into the live chat tonight, we would like to hear what you have to say about this game as well. It's not a lot you can say from a Dynamo perspective. I mean, it was pretty done and dusted by halftime. They scored a goal in stoppage time. Started out in the 6th minute. Segovia, who became more important here tonight with the absence of Lionel Messi. And then Allende in the 37th. Spectacular goal. Assist again for Suarez. Hit an absolute screamer into the far side netting. And then this was, you know, you would have liked to have gotten to the locker room down 2-0. And then to not be able to get there at 2-0 and give up a third. Segovia again, and again assisted by Suarez. So Suarez had 3 assists in the first half, and then added a goal himself in the 79th. Busquets getting the assist on that one. And then Nico Ladero would break the shutout. I don't know what's going on behind us here.
They're cheering for players.
Well, players walking off here. But anyway, big storyline before the game was no Leo Messi. In the end, it doesn't matter for Inter Miami. They dominate every facet of the game. So let's start with Luis Suarez. A goal and 3 assists. Essentially looks like he's playing on one leg. 38 years old. Puts on a master class here tonight with 3 assists. A lot of these were one-time balls. He kept flaring out wide. He kept knocking balls central. And made a huge difference. And you can see it's a guy just with an amazing wealth of experience, even though his physical skills, you know, obviously are deteriorating as a 38-year-old man. I heard he takes shots and things to be able to get himself up for playing in the game. So he's pretty remarkable. I think you got to go to Segovia tonight, who had a big night, 2 goals. Did a lot of dirty work in midfield as well. Played off of Busquets. Kramaski made things very difficult for the Dynamo and Franco Escobar on that side of the field. So it's a big win for Javier Mascherano and company. They do it not only by getting an early gift here, which set the Dynamo off on a really poor start here. The first 3 goals of the season were gifts to opponents. We mentioned before the game that on a night like tonight, I mean, you got to be perfect. You can't make mistakes. This is a team now in the Houston Dynamo that has to acquire more players. I don't think there's any question. You can't go into games like this tonight thinking you're going to beat Inter Miami 1-0. There's no way. The top-end teams in this league, you're not going to beat 1-0. You're going to have to get more resources, more players. That's with respect to everybody that's here, but I think that's been pretty obvious. And that's a good thing that happens tonight here, because it really shows you where your direction is now. And it has to be onward and upward.
Edson joined in. He said Suarez may not be the fastest guy physically, but his mental quickness is 3 levels above everybody else, and it showed tonight.
No question.
Yeah.
No question. That's what you get with Alba. That's what you get with Busquets. That's what you get with Messi. That's what you get, obviously, with Luis Suarez. It's the experience factor. But I would also add something to that heavily, which I did on the broadcast. These guys are amongst the most competitive men in sports. Okay, it doesn't matter that they're 38 years old, 37, 35. Doesn't matter. They are highly competitive. And I think that was what was impressive with Inter Miami. Yeah, it frayed a little bit when they made a lot of changes and subs, but the players that came off the bench, their depth that became a part of the win tonight, were equally as aggressive. They continued to want to try to score goals. And, you know, they've made some signings, guys like Allende, Falcone, who didn't play tonight, Lujan, another defender. They've made some signings that have broadened out the depth of this team. And that's going to make them even more dangerous. And then they got youth. Kramaski, Redondo, Noah Allen. You got youth. You got some homegrowns. So you got a really good blend here. And, again, I think they got to be one of the favorites. I mean, they had the most points in the history of Major League Soccer last year. What else we got here? Let's go to Manuel Castro. Our best player on the field was Awadesu by far, in my opinion. Disappointing. Yeah, he's got a lot of lessons to learn, though, Manuel. He was a part of the first goal here tonight, but I think His start against FC Dallas was good. But, yeah, tonight is an embarrassment, Habib, and I'll tell you why. Because you get these rare moments where you have a captive audience. Messi brought the eyeballs. Messi brought the press. Messi brought everything. You're even on the radio. I was doing the call on Sirius XM as well, right? So you're getting the national. So you want to live up to these moments, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. And it didn't happen tonight. It's sad. I think the Dynamo have a couple of really critical matches here, and I think people may think I'm a little crazy. But when they play El Salvador here, if this place is packed with El Salvadorian fans who are passionate about soccer in Houston, you got to win that game, and you got to perform well. And you got to go to win that game. And you can't play your second team, in my opinion, because these are the rare moments where you can bring in and influence unique fans, and a unique fan is one that isn't coming to the table. They may be a fan of another team, another league. They can, some of them, be won over. And if you're not trying to win them over, then what are you trying to do to broaden your base of fans? You can't just keep going to the well with the same people. Tonight was termed technically a sellout. Bodies weren't here to sell it out. It was a lot of people. It was a lot of additional press because of the arrival of Messi. Now, it's not the Dynamo's fault that he didn't show. Kind of sad that it was let out of the bag as late as it was, right? Because they didn't see him on an injury report or anything. He was strictly rested by the staff of their team, the head coach, maybe he himself. By the way, that's their prerogative. They want to look at it big picture. They're not concerned, unfortunately, for those who shelled out big money for tickets. I'm sorry. That's their prerogative. So if you're going to come out and say, oh, you know, my kid is crying, I mean, come on, give us a break. I mean, if your kid's crying, you know what, as a parent and as an adult, it's a good teachable moment that life sometimes blows, okay? And everything doesn't happen the way you want it to. And you could have still propped up Busquets, who's won a World Cup. You could have propped up Alba. You could have done a lot of things. But for people that are going out, oh, my God, my kid is crying, come on, give us a break. I mean, it's disappointing. I get it. But to go public with that, that to me is
there's a couple
really
on here.
weak.
So
let me see what we got here.
Pre and post-game shows called Dynamo Pulse, and it feels like the Dynamo don't have one.
Well, there wasn't a pulse tonight. There's no. Another observation, Busquets is out there directing. Yeah, he's one of the greatest sixes in the history of the game, Edson. I don't think there's any question. And a lot of times, those players like Artur, they're a little bit more silent because they cut passing lanes out. I mean, the amount of times that Busquets cut out passes and then initiated attacks was exceptional. Jose Juarez, Olsen must start answering questions. Well, they need players, Jose. I mean, I don't think there's any question. There's not going to be a lot you can say about tonight. Edson, same sentiment, Glenn. Yeah, thank you, Edson, for tuning in. Edson's a great soccer man. Jose Juarez, lack of attacking creativity. Yeah, but that's been a question for a couple years. I mean, that's even the year where Hector had the 17 assists. The question was the attack. It remains the question. And the answer to that is either going to lie in what you're going to do tactically. Are you going to change this team? Aliou can't get past anybody to save his life. I love the fact that he defends and he's accountable. But you're not getting anything there. The only thing you get is Dorsey. They contained Dorsey well tonight because they had Alba on that side of the field and others. But those are not new issues. So if you're a fan, the question you want to ask the Dynamo is, what are we going to do with our attack? Now you got another problem because you had a great selling year. Dynamo deserve credit for making sales and bringing millions of dollars into the coffers. It's the best ever trend. But now you got to replace what's gone. You still have time in MLS. You've heard that. I hate saying that, but that's the truth. 18 out of 30 teams make the playoffs. You got time. Get 2 or 3 good players in here. But it is going to make these signings now even more important. You can't miss on these 3. You need 3 big signings. And Pat Onstad knows that. By the way, he was a really good sport. He came in on the Sirius broadcast at halftime. And I'll tell you what, after that first half, if he had said, hey, I don't want to do the interview, I would have been 100% in agreement and understanding. But he still came in and did it. And I think he deserves a lot of props for that. And he's been very transparent with me. And I'm very appreciative of that, and I think the fans should be as well. But Pat is under the fire now to get players. Manuel, parents should have communicated the risks. Well, we all know the Messi show when it comes to town is a risk. No different than the New York Cosmos back in the NASL. They are the traveling road show of this league. When the Cosmos traveled with their stars, they had so many that if Pelé didn't play or Beckenbauer didn't play, nobody really, it registered still, and people were disappointed. This is a different story here. Now, Messi may not have been here, but you saw something special if you were a fan here tonight. You saw competitive guys that have won everything in the game come here and play their hearts out. Say what you want. If you don't agree with me on that one, then you probably left the stadium. Yeah, the Miami, this is a really good point from Manuel Castro. Manuel, I love this. And I did say this on the broadcast. The press was overwhelming. Yeah, it was. And they weren't stupid. You know why they pressed overwhelmingly? They know they got two guys that are coming off fitness in Sviatchenko and Escobar. They know they got a rookie in Awadesu, right? So they're pressing firm and hard. And they did. And they made it. The Dynamo couldn't get a rhythm going. They couldn't get McGlynn the ball. It was a tough night for Jack McGlynn. It was a tough night for everybody. There's nobody who comes through here. You got to give credit to Ladero for breaking the shutout, I think.
I'm going to let Glenn catch his breath really quick. Do me a favor, guys. Go ahead and share wherever you're watching this. Go ahead and share it to your personal social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, if you want to share the YouTube link. It would be greatly appreciated. I was going to steal your phone and do the same thing to yours.
What's that?
Share it to your Facebook page as well.
Yeah. Twitter and Instagram at Glenn Davis Sock. By the way, guys, there's a lot of really smart soccer people that I notice that come on this. And I know 6 o'clock Central Time, you might be breaking bread with your family. You could be at work. You got a lot of things you could be doing other than listening to Glenn Davis on the radio. But Soccer Matters wants you guys to start calling in. If you don't want more nights like this, then call in and talk. You know, I know everybody likes to listen, and then you get it on the podcast, and I understand. People's lives are busy. Sometimes mine is, too. Mine is minute compared to others. But I will say, really want you to be a part of the show more because it is important to get your feedback and your thoughts out. This is why we're doing this today. Number 2, we have a brand new sponsor for Soccer Matters. You know our great sponsor, the Daspit Law Firm. It's called Senate Avenue Brewing out in Jersey Village. It's a straight shot up 290. You'll see a Senate Avenue exit. It's right there. It's wide open. They got monitors everywhere. They brew the beer in-house. I was drinking the beer. I wanted to take the day off. They had a copper ale that was amazing. It's incredible fresh beer. But we're going to be doing a live show March 18th there. We're going to do one every month up until the World Cup. And I want to see if we can get a group of people coming out. We'll have T-shirts to give away, soccer balls, a whole bunch more. I'm going to bring great guests out there. Dynamo General Manager Pat Onstad's coming out. I'm going to do some seminars with college coaches, with those of you who are in supporters groups. I really want to give a lot of access to a lot of people, and you're going to get a little bit of my opinion, too, because I am, after all, the host of the show, and I get it on the air. But I want you to hopefully really support that and Senate Avenue Brewing as
I'll be
well.
there. When's the first
March
show
18th
there?
is the first one.
And
we'll go 6 to 8, by the way.
Okay.
We'll go 6 to 8, and it'll be a 2-hour show when they're there. I want to look at Ike Bear, roster holes, get late early if they don't get some wins early. Yeah, this was always, and I think I mentioned this on the show, this is a tough start to the season, losing quality like Carrasquilla and Hector Herrera. Now, you got Columbus, by the way, on the road. That's an incredibly difficult game, right? You got to learn a lot about yourselves. You got to figure out where you're going from here. But, you know, the number one thing on the list is get players, and you have to become a better attacking team. I don't think there's any question. The league is getting too good. It's getting too good. It's getting too elevated. It's getting too accelerated. You got a 38-year-old who tonight really put on a master class with a goal and 3 assists, and a lot of it was just one-time football. Let me see. Caesar says, what are the biggest needs? Forward, it's attack and defense. You sold a great defender in Mikael. You got a great payoff from him. It's hard not to sell him at that price, right? It's great business. But with business comes having to replace the great players you let go. And You want to replace them with people that are less expensive so that you can turn a profit. Sometimes it's not possible. I look at Teenage Adabi on FC Cincinnati right now, and I'm like, yeah, wouldn't be bad if he was here.
No.
But then the Dynamo did the same thing. They got rid of Hadabi because he was at a bigger price point, brought in a low price point in Mikael, who started with Dynamo too, and have now sold him for a profit. So they absolutely need a center back. I don't think there's any question. You need a defender, and you need 2 attackers, and one of them has to be an attacker that is better than anything you have. And I say that in a way that I don't want that to sound disrespectful to anybody. But in order to make Jack McGlynn a better signing, and in order to make Nico Ladero a better signing, you have to get a next-level guy in the DP10 spot. That it can't be somebody slightly better. Has to be a big jump. And if you do, then you can get your team back in shape and health. What else do we got here? Let's get ready for a tough season at the moment. But those 3 signings are going to be critical, Jesse. What else we got? Well, they couldn't pass out of the back because they were suffocated in a lot of ways, so it forced them to play short. So I give a lot of credit to Inter Miami, and I did that on the broadcast. Their team shape, their compactness, their lines were tight. This not only had big stars on it, but this was a very finely tuned team under Mascherano. And by the way, Mascherano's never coached on a daily basis a club. It's only been under 20 national teams. So I was impressed with them tactically, and they won the tactical battle 10 out of 10 here today. Jonas said, I agree, Jose, we needed to get it together. Well, I think once you saw Coco and Hector go, and then Mikael, well, you knew this was going to be tough. And you got to make signings. And, whether that's going to come before the transfer window ends in April, or if you're going to have to wait till the summer, it's going to complicate things. This, all of a sudden, tonight became a lot more apparent. You could have walked away from the Dallas game and said, that's okay. Dallas is not any great shakes yet. But this is a standard bearer. This is where you measure yourself. Dallas is a work in progress. So is the Houston Dynamo. What else you guys got? Come on. Come at us.
Stats?
Go ahead.
All right. So shots tonight, Houston 7, 2 on target to Miami's 10, 6 on target. 2-2 on corners. Final third entries, Houston had 50 to Miami's 32.
That's why data sometimes.
Yep.
A lot of that came in the second half, right? When Inter Miami started making changes. And you saw that Mascherano wanted to make sure that he got a lot of these younger guys involved with the win here tonight.
McGlynn with 94 touches. He only had 1 in the box. There were shots. He did have 9 passes in the final third. It did create a shot create a chance that led to a shot tonight. But
he was absent in the second half, to his credit. Look, he's 21 years old. He's been handed the reins of the Dynamo right now. He's a promising player. It was a good buy at $2.1 million, but I'm going to go back to you can accent and take the pressure off him by getting a high-end DP that's a playmaker.
And
easier said than done.
The big stat line of tonight was Suarez with his 1 goal, 3 assists, only 3 shots on target, 3 shots, 1 on target. He only had 45 touches tonight, but he was efficient with all his touches.
A lot of one-time football. We saw it, right? Remember the one he put in Allende who hit the scorcher? It was a one. All he was doing was, and it was very obvious for everyone to see, he wasn't standing in the middle with 2 center backs on him. He kept flaring out, and a lot of times people didn't want to go with him, and he'd be open. They'd play a firm ball to his feet, and he'd one-time it in behind the Dynamo defense. This was ABCs of football, but super high IQ. And, honestly, I hate seeing the Dynamo take the loss tonight in front of these fans, but I also feel very privileged that I got to see these guys here tonight. And I think, yes, Messi wasn't here, but this was the thing that a lot of people were lost on. You're talking about guys that have won World Cups in a city that's going to hold a World Cup in 2026. Mainstream press isn't doing anything around this. We have to do it. We're doing stuff with painted soccer balls and all that. But we're not talking about when World Cup participants who have won World Cup have come to Houston. We have one on our team, Nico Ladero. That's a story for Dynamo fans. It's a story for World Cup 2026. He's played in 2 World Cups. He's played with Suarez. Tonight you had Uruguayans a part of all 5 goals here. All 5. that got a fourth-place finish at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. Rafael Pena. Well, I think that's fair. You have to look at the goalkeeping position now, but it's also unsettled in front of Andrew Tarbell. But I think saying missing Clark right now, yes, you are. You are. What are we doing not replacing? Just burn some 2020. I'm not. Trinidad 2000 or RS. Be a little bit more clear here. What are we doing? I mean, is that just because we got beat 4? Well, listen, you can say Steve Clark had 2 outstanding seasons. You could hear Ben Olsen say he's been exceptional for us. They didn't bring him back because of a cap issue. They felt Tarbell was ready, and they felt that, look, in order to be compliant with our cap, we got to replace Steve Clark with Andrew Tarbell because he's less of a cap hit. And again, I don't want to be disrespectful here because when you get into numbers and contract sizes and salaries, it can be disrespectful. But honestly, for a guy that played professional soccer for $2,000 a month in an apartment, at my best times, I'm not afraid to talk about salaries because I can tell you every single guy's out here is quadruple whatever I made. And it was different times, and I loved every minute of it. All right. Is Tarbell related to Tony Keg? Now, that's not nice. That's not nice, Ike Bear. What else you got?
We got scores.
Was there another game today, Vancouver?
Yes, Vancouver, LA Galaxy. That was 2-1. That's kicked off at around 4 o'clock. Peck with a goal in the 39th minute, but White scored for Vancouver in the 87th to put Vancouver up.
So wait, Vancouver beat the beat the defending champs. Atakugbe and White. Wow, that's a huge, dramatic victory. That's at BC Place.
Yep.
And Brian White continues to be a dangerous goal scorer. I just don't ever see Vancouver going the distance. I just don't think they want to win an MLS Cup with their off-field action and attendance. Portland, I believe that was a free kick from DaCosta, knocked off our friends at Austin FC. Here's one. Wilfried Zaha. I said this on the broadcast tonight. This is an interesting thing in Major League Soccer, and for those listening in, I'd like your feedback on this. Why don't the home teams ever build up the star quality that's coming in from opponents? I would rather hear about Wilfried Zaha coming into my town, who's a Premier League player, who scored a boatload of goals at Crystal Palace. Why aren't you using players like that to sell the game? There's no problem in doing that. You get a quote from your players against going up against a good player, but you make it a selling point. We don't get any of that from the mainstream press, and I think MLS clubs need to do that. You have to star build others than just Lionel Messi and hope he's going to come to your town one time, because there's a lot of talent in it. Nobody talked about Christian Benteke last year. He was banging in goals everywhere.
He was.
I mean,
and
he's a Premier. He was a Premier League player. Everybody loves the Premier League. There's players here, that we don't star build, and I put that on the clubs. To be honest with you. Yeah.
RSL 2-0 winners over Seattle Sounders.
Ike Bear says we need some humor. Well, I don't know.
Kind of agree with him on that.
Yeah. Anybody got a top hat? I'll do a song and dance. I don't know.
Russell Rowe scoring for Columbus Crew to put them up over the New England Revolution 1-0. New York
Red 2-0. Columbus 2-0 now.
Yes, I believe so. And
well, you don't do it right now.
New York Red Bulls 2-0 over Nashville SC. Orlando 4-2 winners over Toronto. Philadelphia Union with Baribo with a hat trick and their new signing Damien.
So this guy Baribo in Philadelphia has now got 5 in two games. He's played for Israel. Apparently, when I read his bio, he's been a part of the military. But he's got 5 goals in 2 games. He hit for a hat trick.
Yep.
I mean, what did he have, about 8 or 9 last year? He had 8 or 9. This guy's a consistent goal scorer.
He didn't come on as a starter until they sold off Carranza last year.
Okay, so he's lived up to it. So when you sell Carranza, you take in the money, and then you have to have belief and faith that this guy can do it. I think every MLS team does that, and it works out sometimes. Other times it doesn't. Now, in the case of this guy, he's already got five goals. I mean, it's pretty incredible. Now, Philly's going to play a high-pressing game under Bradley Carnell, who comes over from St. Louis. Now, whether they're going to be able to do that, they were intense as anything last night. That was unbelievable. It was a great atmosphere in Philadelphia as well. But to do that over the course of a long season, you saw that wore out in year 2 in St. Louis. So that's something to keep an eye on.
Speaking of Benteke, he did score to open up the scoring in the Chicago Fire DC United game, which did end in a 2-2 draw. Minnesota United 1-0 winners over Montreal. San Jose Earthquakes beating Kansas City at home. Arango and Martinez both with goals in that.
Let me see that one. San Jose. That's Bruce Arenas 2 for 2 out of the box. I like seeing an old veteran in the league, a crusty old guy who gets mad at the press. I love that. Every league needs that.
Yeah.
So we got the boss, Bruce Arena, in there. By the way, he got jobbed in New England, getting booted out of there.
I do want to touch on the SKC situation really quick.
Sporting Kansas City. Well, he beat Peter Vermees.
They did have issues last year. Do they start raising questions about Peter Vermees?
Oh, I think right now there's questions in Kansas City. They bought Joveljic for big cash. They lost twice to Inter Miami. They did play Inter Miami and Lionel Messi. So they lost 1-0 and they lost 3-1. So we'll see. Again, MLS is a very forgiving league. It's a league that you can reboot. You can be really in a struggle and not have a very good first half of the season. And then you can make a few changes, and all of a sudden things come to life in the second. But I don't like that attitude, and I'll tell you why. But we have to know this is the way this league works. 18 of 30 teams make the playoffs. I mean, bad teams make the playoffs. I'm sorry. Teams that don't have great seasons make the playoffs. But that's the way the league works. And if you approach it like that, you can't really argue with the coaches and the staffs. I don't like the lack of consequence early in the year. But I think today is a missed opportunity for the Houston Dynamo. I think they're going to tell you that as well, because when you have a big crowd, you don't want to lay an egg. Also remember the time the Dynamo played the LA Galaxy. I think it was before Barcelona here, and I remember calling the game. I think it might have been Barcelona Club America. I don't know. Big crowd, huge crowd in energy. And I'm saying before the game, okay, MLS product on display. You got to have a good night here. And it ended up being a conservative, boring, ugly game. The coaches didn't open it up. I put some blame on the coaches that night. And you got a 0-0. And I'm just going, God, this is so bad for 65,000 people here to be watching this and making a short-term judgment on the product. And that's why these games are so important. The El Salvador game is going to be huge for Houston, I think, from a standpoint of earning fans. The Tigres game in the Leagues Cup will be hugely important. Tigres is the most popular team in town. They drive over the border every weekend to watch them. By the way, their coach, Veljko Paunovic, has been fired. He was a head coach in Chicago as well, and they're in third place in La Liga. But that game, again, is big. You get one over on Tigres, you can earn potentially new fans. They may not become a Dynamo fan first, but they may become a Dynamo fan second, and they may spend money here. And I'm sick and tired of hearing people, oh, we can't get Liga MX fans. Why not? They're passionate about soccer. Why don't you want El Salvadorian fans? I mean, who are we going after? We have soccer fans here in Houston. All right.
A couple things here.
Off my soapbox. Corey Roth, we were 6s and 7s. I guess that's English for we weren't good.
Colorado Rapids, FC Dallas 3-3. LAFC 1-0 winners over New York or NYCFC.
Okay, so let me go back to Colorado because you're just whipping these off. Let's make a comment about these. So the Rapids in Dallas. So Navarra had 2, the Brazilian guy up front, who I had real concerns about when he came to MLS. FC Dallas under our local Houston guy, Eric Quill. We're going to root for him when they're not playing the Dynamo. Get goals from Pedrinho, Acosta, and Musa. Now, Peter Musa's got 2. He's an excellent striker. And Lucho Acosta finally, so he hits the net. He's only, hasn't even been there 2 weeks. That's going to be a pairing to keep an eye on, Acosta and Musa. But what you know from Dallas is they want to be an all-out attacking team. So they are going to give up goals like this, and they're going to be in games that produce 6 goals and a lot of goals. And the other one you mentioned was LAFC beat New York City FC. That's Ryan Hollingshead. Incredible that guy scores the game winner. I mean, he has become such a piece of LAFC. And that was some savvy business to get him from FC Dallas.
With the results tonight, Miami now moves to third in the East. 1 win, 1 draw, 0 losses. They
Are we
sitting
even
at
looking
4
at the
points.
table right now?
You know.
Okay.
Dynamo are sitting in dead last in the West, so there's that.
Tough night.
Yeah.
Tough night.
What do you think we should pay attention to heading into the Columbus match?
Well, it's reaction time.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a question. I mean, they got to dig deep now. Ben Olsen and his staff have got a ton of work here to do. They got a ton of work off the field. They've got to secure more players. I think it's pretty obvious. I think I mentioned that this was a good and bad schedule to start the season. It was good from the standpoint of big bang for your buck when it comes to the opponents coming in. But you're getting some of the best of the best, certainly with Columbus coming up and Inter Miami tonight. And when you've extracted some of the key pieces of your team and you're trying to figure out this early in the year against these quality teams, it's rough. That's going to be a very tough place to get a result in Columbus. But that becomes opportunity now to reverse a really bad night on the road. And maybe some of the pressure's off on the road. Last year, the Dynamo had a good road record, but there is no doubt they are going to have to get players. There's no doubt. What else you got?
That's it.
Anybody else have anything? I think we're going to call it a night, guys.
Sure.
All right, Jonah, Raphael, Corey, Eichbear, Edson, Raphael. Let's go get a cold beer. That'll do it tonight. Hey, by the way, I want to remind you, first off, I thank you guys for tuning in and adding to this. It's fun to have a conversation with all of you. You guys are all real football fans. Number 2, Soccer Matters this week is Wednesday and Thursday, 6 to 7. But when we do those live shows, they'll be 2-hour shows. So March 18th, if you can come out, we'll have some swag, stuff we all get. All right, we got beat down tonight, that's for sure. There'll be a lot of talk on the show this week. If you can call in, I'd love it. Again, for Justin really helping out here and doing a great job getting us on the air and being a part of this. Dave Obert out here, our engineer as well. Until Wednesday night, 6 o'clock Central Time, Soccer Matters brought to you by the Daspit Law Firm. Have a good night, good rest of your Sunday night.